Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. This is Racing Across America. I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us as always. A fun show today. We will do a little crossbreed. Usually we're focused on the thoroughbreds, but it's a big night on the harness side. We'll talk about that in just a moment. A little bit later on, however, nice day down at Belmont today. 4 stakes races. So gave a shout out to David Aragona. We'll get some of his opinions on the stakes action down at Belmont coming up later this afternoon. Belmont at the Big A. And maybe get some Breeders' Cup opinions from David as well. That's coming up a little bit later on, though. But as I said, tonight, Mohawk Woodbine has the Breeders' Crown, which is the highlight of the harness season. And I know, including myself, we have a lot of harness fans out there in the audience. So I thought, who better to reach out to than our friend Ken Weingartner from the U.S. Trotting Association and talk a little Breeders' Crown, get some ideas on some of the specific races and whatnot. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. And again, I'm happy to have you on board. Before we get to today's action, last night they did some 2-year-old races, and reading some of the follow-ups, it sounded like some nice fireworks last night, performances and prices and whatnot. Give us a little recap of last night on the 2-year-old scene in the Breeders' Crown.
Oh, it was a great night last night. The first thing that was wonderful about it was the weather, because it usually rains one of these nights, and we're going to get good weather both days, fortunately. But we had some really wonderful races and performances. The one that really stood out was Special Way winning the 2-year-old filly trot, and she won in 1:52. That's a Canadian record. Breaking a record held by Mission Brief, and Mission Brief was quite a fast horse, held numerous world records. So when you're breaking a record that she set, it's really doing something, and to do it on a chilly night at the end of the season, coming first up against good horses, it was really the standout performance of the night. And we capped off the 4 races last night in the Breeders' Crown with a big upset, 52-1 Ammo in the 2-year-old Colt Pace, and very good horse. Had some health issues early in the year. They got him straightened out. He raced pretty well in his elimination last week, but drew post 9 in the final, so I think that was part of the reason for the price. But got a great trip from Hall of Fame driver David Miller, and was able to pull off the big upset. And that was a great way to cap those 4 races and lead us into tonight.
Yeah, it was a nice night reading, some of the recaps. Again, I pulled up the USTA website this morning, and I was reading some of the recaps. And the Ammo, I love the headline, Ammo fires off Breeders' Crown shocker. I see what you guys did there. I like that. Very good.
Yep. And that was the biggest upset in that division in Breeders' Crown history.
52-1. You got, and that's what you love, the mix, some prices and some performances, making for some good storylines. And it looks like more of that in store tonight. Before we talk, and we're going to talk some of the specific races here and get some of your thoughts, but before we talk specifics, just give us a little, for folks who aren't familiar, a little overview of the Breeders' Crown itself and what we're expecting tonight as far as the superstars showing up.
Well, the Breeders' Crown, it's very similar to the Breeders' Cup on the thoroughbred side, and it's kind of the year-end championships. And we have 12 divisions, and they divided it up over the 2 nights, with the 2-year-olds going on Friday and the 3-year-olds and up going on Saturday. And they're going to run those races 8 in a row, races 2 through 9 tonight. And they're really fantastic races. There's hardly a race in there where you can say there's a surefire winner. We've got a couple fields that are a little bit larger than usual. Typically, you would have 10 horses on the gate up here at Mohawk, but there's going to be a few races where we have an 11-horse field with 1 horse starting in the trailing position behind the horse in the 1 post. And that certainly adds a little bit more depth to it, and the bettors really seem to like that too, and it makes it a little bit more intriguing.
So for folks who are handicapping and don't follow maybe Woodbine Mohawk regularly, the second tier runners will start horse number 11.
Correct.
All right, very good. And let's jump in. Let's take a look at. I am really looking forward to this. I was in here doing our afternoon handicapping show a couple weeks ago when they were racing down at the Red Mile, and I touted people, check out Bulldog Hanover here. And I sat in here and watched the race, and we're going to see the replay of the stretch run. And again, this is going back a couple weeks ago. Lexington, the Red Mile. It is going to be the superstar Bulldog Hanover. But he can't hold off Allywag Hanover, who goes by him in the stretch in just a couple of incredible performances. I'm looking forward to the rematch tonight. It's going to be race number 9, the Breeders' Crown Final Open Pace, Allywag Hanover against Bulldog Hanover again. Really looking forward to this one. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's going to be the big event for sure. Bulldog Hanover has been the star of the season. Fastest standard bred in history. He won in 1:45 and 4 at the Meadowlands in the William Houghton in July, and that's only scratching the surface of what this horse has done this year. Because he's kind of you have Flightline on the thoroughbred side, we have Bulldog Hanover on the harness side, and he's coming into this year. I think there have been 11 winning miles under 147. No horse had ever done it more than once. Bulldog Hanover has done it 5 times this year. And every performance has just been breathtaking. And it's not like he's been taking weeks off either. He did 3 consecutive weeks at the Meadowlands in under 147. He came up here, won the Canadian Pacing Derby in 146 and 4, fastest mile ever in Canada. Nothing fluky about this horse. And that being said, Allywag Hanover is a remarkable horse in and of itself. He's got 4 second-place finishes this year, all to Bulldog Hanover. He would pretty much be the talk of the division if it wasn't for Bulldog Hanover. And going back to that race at the Red Mile, Jack Darling, who trains Bulldog Hanover, had a great year for him because he was just elected into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. They made a decision. They went down there to take a shot at lowering Bulldog's record. And Jack said, the trainer and him worried about just going out and winning the race, but a huge number of people came out to see the horse, and he told driver Dexter Dunn, these people have come to see a new record, we've got to go for it. And having done that, looking back, he says, had we not done that, maybe it's a different result down there. But he had no regrets about it, and he realizes the popularity of this horse and what he's done for the sport. And, I'm just happy to be going along on the ride with him.
Yeah, really looking forward to this one tonight. While you were talking, I pulled up because we did a handicapping show earlier, and we were talking about yesterday down at Belmont at the Big A, the Aqueduct, on the thoroughbred side of things. The first race yesterday at Aqueduct was a mile. They went in 142.27. So Bulldog Hanover out there, pacing around at 145 kind of puts it in perspective. And from the days when I started in the game and was going to Saratoga harness regularly as a kid, 145 was just unimaginable. So I am really looking forward again to the rematch tonight, Allywag Hanover and Bulldog Hanover. And as you kind of alluded to, reading the lead up, the Allywag Hanover camp is, I'm feeling some confidence coming off of that race 2 weeks ago.
Oh, absolutely. Brett Pelling, who trains Allywag Hanover, said this horse is a beast. And, unlike any horse he's ever trained. He's got raw speed. He's got great ability. He has set numerous world records in his career as well. He joined Bulldog Hanover as the only horses now to have gone under 147 more than once in their career. He did that by upsetting him in Lexington. So he is a terrific horse, like I've said before, and he was the Dan Patch Award winner as Best Older Male Pacer last year. So it's not really a big surprise what happened there. He is the one horse, speed-wise, ability-wise, that could give Bulldog Hanover trouble.
Really looking forward to it. That's scheduled for race 9 tonight. The program's going to kick off at 7 o'clock. And also I wanted to add, because I went to the Woodbine Mohawk site this morning, they have a couple of pick 5s with $100,000 guarantees. One's going to kick off in race 1. One will kick off in race number 6. A couple of guarantees on the pick 5s tonight out there, so it should be a lot of fun. Let's go back to race number 7, Breeders' Cup Final for the 3-year-old pacing colts. I pulled up a replay going back just a week ago, and that's the beauty of these harness horses. Every week they're popping out there, every couple of weeks at most. But By the Missile is going to be the winner in this race from last week. Comes back, and it was right over this Woodbine Mohawk course, and comes back tonight as the 9-5 choice in a field of 12. So another really nice big field in the 7th race. What are your thoughts with the 3-year-old Colt Pacers?
Oh, that's going to be a good one, too. There's very few that aren't going to be good ones, so I'll just say that, because very deep fields. By the Missile has been a revelation this year. Ron Burke, trainer and owner, has bought into this horse before the season began, started training him, really liked him. He said, he didn't have a horse in his barn that could go with this horse. Has had a fantastic year. He's won 12 of 14, finished second in the 2 races that he didn't win. He's coming in on a winning streak. He's won the Little Brown Jug. He's won the Ohio Sire Stakes Championship. He's won the Adios. And he looked great in his elimination leading up to this final. Just a really talented horse, great ability. And talking to Ron, it sounds like he believes, we haven't seen the best yet that this horse has to offer. So that's kind of exciting as well. He thinks there's a lot more that this horse can do and more in the tank.
And I will toss out there, By the Missile comes in 12 for 14 this year, as you say, the winner of the Little Brown Jug. 9-5 on the morning line, but as I look down the page, not the morning line favorite. Pebble Beach is going off at 8-5 on the morning line.
That's right, and he's had a very good year. Pebble Beach came up here in June to Mohawk and won the North America Cup. Got his season off to a great start. Kind of had hard to say a lull. He was finishing second all the time down at Lexington's Red Mile. There's a number of stakes races down there. You're not permitted to use Lasix there. That might have contributed a little bit to it because he is a Lasix horse. He came back on Lasix here for the Breeders' Crown elimination and just romped. Put in a very impressive performance, won by almost 3 lengths, won in 48 and 3. I think that's his mark for his career. And he seems to be very sharp. He's coming off back-to-back wins. He's already won here, a major race. Definitely a big player here. And it looks like that one kind of shaping up like a 2-horse race. But you know what happens when you think it's a 2-horse race. There's going to be somebody else that's thinking, I'm going to crash the party. And that's quite possible here as well.
Well, you mentioned Pebble Beach had a string of seconds, and some of those were behind I Did It My Way, who's back in here again. The last couple of races, I Did It My Way has been behind By the Missile and Pebble Beach, but it finished in front of Pebble Beach a few times earlier this year, so he had some intrigue as well. And you mentioned By the Missile winning the Jug. That was another one. When we were doing our afternoon handicapping show, we were showing the races from the Delaware County Fair that week, and I have to say, and I'm sure you've been there, and so you can give me and the audience a little insight. I would love to get out there. The Delaware County Fair and Little Brown Jug week and the day just looked like a lot of fun. Sometime I think we got to take our afternoon handicapping show on the road and do a little Delaware County Fair for the Jug.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a wonderful time out there. It's unlike anything you'd really experience at a track, either thoroughbred or harness. It's you're right there in the midst of the county fair. They get 40,000 plus people that come out on Little Brown Jug Day. People are just ringing around the track in the grandstand. It's a half-mile oval, which is wonderful because you're right. You're so close to the horses on the half-mile track, and it's basically a party. And it's a wonderful party at that, and people just, kids take off from school. Chris Page, who drives By the Missile, he grew up right around that area and started going to the Little Brown Jug when he was 10 years old. And for him to be able to win that race was a dream come true. And he said that the best thing about the Jug was it was like I got to get out of school a day. That was like a special thing, a special occasion, and it really made an impact on him, and his love for racing really goes back to the Little Brown Jug.
You gotta love that when the locals get the day off from school. It's an event. Yeah, we got to get out there sometime. All right, let's go back to the fourth race, Breeders' Cup Final for the 3-year-old filly trotters. And just looking at some of the lists of the leaders on the USTA website, a couple jumped out that are in this race: Jiggy Jog S and Joviality S. And I pulled up Joviality going back last week. A nice win right up here at Woodbine. Jiggy Jog S also that same night won another race. So these are both coming out. But again, we're looking at Joviality here. And I wanted to feature her a little bit because she is shortly the favorite in here at 6-5 over Jiggy Jog at 7-5. But more importantly, I think folks who maybe focus a little more on the thoroughbred side don't realize it. But Joviality this year with 11 wins and 14 starts, she's got $1 million in the bank. So there's money to be made over on the harness side as well. What are your thoughts in this 3-year-old filly trot?
This is going to be one of the exciting races on the card to me from the standpoint, you've mentioned Joviality, you mentioned Jiggy Jog. There's also Fashion Schooner in here. Those 3 horses represent 3 of the top 7 in the sports top 10 poll. So it's really something to have, 3-year-old filly trotters in the top 10 like this. Joviality has been really, really good this year, and she was really good last year. She won the Breeders' Crown at 2. She's looking to repeat. She came out this year. She took on the boys in the Yonkers Trot, beat them there, first filly to win the Yonkers Trot since 1996. From there, took them on again in the Hamiltonian, came up just short, finishing second to Cool Papa Bell. So definitely has got the credentials here, no doubt about it. She was a New York Sire Stakes champion and has raced really, really well. Jiggy Jog came in. She won in the Hamiltonian elimination. She also took on the boys in the Hamiltonian. Won an elimination there. Finished 4th in the final, only beaten a length and a half. Came back in one of the recent meetings Lexington's Red Mile was in the Kentucky Filly Futurity, where she was able to beat Joviality by a nose. So those 2 are coming in very sharp. Both won their eliminations. Both won them very impressively. Joviality came from the back of the pack, which is not her usual style. Usually she gets out of the gate very quickly and gets the lead and does her business there. This time she was 8th early on, came flying home. Really maybe from what people would have thought an impossible spot, and won comfortably. Fashion Schooner, as I mentioned, as part of this trio, she won the Hamiltonian Oaks while Jiggy Jog and Joviality were off taking on the boys. She beat the fillies in the Hamiltonian Oaks. She's won a number of stakes races this year, cannot be overlooked in this group. They all have good starting positions. It shapes up to be something really special. And the other nice thing about this race, because of Joviality taking on the boys here and there and Jiggy Jog as well, this is the first time these horses will meet this year. They've not seen each other on the track, so we're going to see something we haven't seen, and that's going to be exciting as well.
I like that. That's race number 4. Again, a nice 12-horse field in here. It is, as I say, shaping up to be a big night with the superstars. And when you and I were in contact yesterday, you mentioned one other race and one other superstar. And when you mentioned it, I thought, well, yeah, we got to talk a little bit about this race. Because, again, a couple weeks ago, we were showing that Lexington Red Mile Day, and I touted the folks who may not have been familiar, check out Atlanta in this upcoming race when she was about to go. And she got it done a couple of weeks ago down at Lexington. We're going to watch Atlanta get it done. And Atlanta is just a really, really talented 7-year-old mare. And you said this is going to be her swan song tonight, race number 2, the Open Mare Trot. Talk a little bit about Atlanta.
Yes, this is Atlanta's last season of racing. They announced that back right before the Little Brown Jug, because she was going to race at Delaware there. They wanted the fans to come out and have a chance to see her. And she won over there on the half-mile track, first time she had ever been there. And they're going to retire her. She's going to be broodmare. And, we're really going to miss her. She's been one of the greatest trotting mares in the history of the sport. She's won $3.5 million. She ranks fourth all time among female trotters in earnings. She's won the Hamiltonian. She's been Trotter of the Year. She won the Maple Leaf Trot up here a couple years ago, which was one of the big races for the older horses, beating the boys. I went back and I looked. She's defeated the boys 7 times in her career, all in stakes races. So just a wonderful, wonderful horse, and has given us so many thrills. She's the co-fastest female trotter in history. She trotted 149. You could just go on and on talking about her.
Yeah.
And the one thing about her, she's never won a Breeders' Crown. So they're trying to get that get that trophy for her this time around.
Put the missing part to the resume as she heads out. That would be great. Yeah, that would be a great little way to kick off the night, because she's in race number 2. And again, the card starts tonight at 7 o'clock. And it is, we've just hit on some of the stars on the card, and really nice full fields, and should be a lot of fun tonight. Ken, as I say, thought nobody better to catch up with and talk little trotters and pacers than Ken Weingartner. So we appreciate the visit to you and everybody. Have some fun tonight. We will over here watching on our side, and appreciate the conversation. We'll talk again.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it, and enjoy the races tonight.
Appreciate it. Ken Weingartner, again, from the USTA, and big night. Woodbine Mohawk tonight with the Breeders' Crown. They had some fireworks and fun last night with the 2-year-old side of things, but it continues tonight with a nice big card. I will remind you again, they have said 2 pick 5s with $100,000 guarantees. One starts in race 1, one starts in race 6. So should be a really fun night. You can watch it all here on the network this evening. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have some news and notes. And then a little bit later on, about 10 minutes down the road, David Aragona will join us, and we'll talk some Belmont at the Big A and their stakes action as well. So stay tuned. Racing Across America continues.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. I should have mentioned there are free PPs available. I think if you go to the Woodbine Mohawk site, there are free PPs for the card. And I should have put them over at Equidale with the PPs I put up for the Breeders' Cup, and maybe I'll do that after this. But there are past performances for the Breeders' Crown available. You can always get free PPs at Capital OTB Bet, or Capital OTB. The website. You can pull up some past performances as well for the tracks we have. So keep that in mind. But news and notes. I mentioned this yesterday, but for folks who are more plugged in on the weekend, they just announced Jessica Paquette, who was on with us. I want to say Pennsylvania Derby Day. I think she was talking some parks. But it's been within the last month and a half or so we had Jessica on. But Jessica Paquette has been named the new announcer at Parks. Chris Griffin, the announcer down there, was part of that announcement right at the end of Saratoga, where John Embriel will now do part of the year. He'll do Belmont, Frank Miramati will do Saratoga, and Chris Griffin will do the rest of the year in New York. So Chris Griffin moving on from the year-round assignment down at Parks. Jessica Paquette will step in. And as a female announcer, this is kind of groundbreaking. The Racing Forum article by Matt Haggerty that talked about the announcement mentioned Angela Herman, who called she's a regular at Canterbury, and she is called at Canterbury, and she did a few weeks out at Gold. But there's been no real full-time year-round, certainly, female announcer. So Jet, who has done some announcing at a couple other venues, she's called at Suffolk, Colonial, Sam Houston. She will be calling now down in Park, so good for her. And we'll plug her into the show sometime over the next few weeks and just get some thoughts from her because it's going to be interesting. She will be kind of groundbreaking, and again, she's got the experience, so it'll be fun to kind of have a female voice in the booth. And again, Parks is a year-round kind of gig, so good for her. That was announced yesterday or the day before. Jessica Paquette down at Parks. New York Gaming Commission, another article from Matt Haggerty. New York Gaming Commission is seeking a 3-year exemption on LASIX from HISA, with the HISA rules being what they are. Reading this article, it doesn't sound like they're alone in this. And they're kind of proposing over the 3 years, let's kind of do a study and make sure that this move is the best move we're making. The Matt Haggerty was talking to some of the New York people, David O'Rourke and Joe Applebaum. David O'Rourke from NYRA, Joe Applebaum from the Horsemen's Association. And they were concerned that if they didn't do this, if they didn't ask for the exemption, some of the other neighboring jurisdictions it might wind up hurting entries and whatnot. So we'll see how that all plays out. But again, there has been on the rule, which is supposed to go into effect at the first of the year. We'll see. They may get the exemption here as they have applied for it. Talked about this briefly on the handicappers report earlier. The future pool, the first future pool, and they've done this now a couple of years, the 2-year-old, the really early future pool, I think it's a couple of years old. But the first Derby future pool will be next week. And it's, as opposed to typically it's a weekend kind of thing. Next week, it's going to be more middle of the week. It'll kick off on November 1st, and it'll end on Thursday, November 3rd. So tomorrow kicks off Churchill with a Future Stars card, 2-year-olds. So you'll get to look at that and maybe get some ideas there. And then subsequent to that card, right now the field for this future pool isn't out. They're going to do it subsequent to that card at Churchill tomorrow. So you'll get to look at that. You will not, however, get to look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which is Friday. And this closes on Thursday. But more important than the dates was the news that these future pools now will have 40 betting interests. So 39 individuals, 1 all others, which will make for some better value. Again, in this day and age, it seems like they could have a pool where you could have any 2-year-old you can think of, or any 2-year-old that's registered would be out there, which would make for crazy odds, you would think. But this is better because it has been 24 and betting entries. Now it's going to be 40, so it's going to offer a little more value for some of the horses. And again, the first Derby future pool will be this upcoming week, November 1st through November 3rd. Also, this is kind of interesting. It came out this week. West Point going to put up a little piece of flight line. Will go to auction in the Keeneland auction on November 5th. You will have a chance at a 2.5% fractional interest in Flightline. Going to be auctioned off again November 5th at Keeneland. I think it's just interesting, a superstar like this, to potentially get a piece of the horse, and what someone will pay for 2.5% of a horse like Flightline. So I'm intrigued by it. I'm pretty much guaranteeing I am out of the running for a piece that I'm thinking the 2.5% is going to attract some decent attention. So we'll see though, but like I say, a fun little piece of news and fun to kind of see what the 2.5% does attract. And again, that'll be a few days after the Breeders' Cup. All right, we'll take a break. As promised a little bit earlier, David Aragona will join us. We'll take a look at some of the stakes at Belmont this afternoon, maybe get some early thoughts on the Breeders' Cup coming up. So all of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Doesn't get any better than this, Tom. They're all in line, ready for the start. And they're off. American Pharaoh comes into his final furlong. Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime. This is unbelievable. He's one of the most sensational ever.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Belmont. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a three-horse photo finish to the top. Here's the winner. Photo finish.
Welcome back. As promised before the break, we are joined now by David Aragona, the morning line odds maker for the New York Racing Association. You can also see his work in the Daily Racing Form on the time form side of things. David, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to have you on board. Talk a little Belmont at the Big A stakes action, because it's a nice stakes day today. Maybe we'll get some Breeders' Cup thoughts as well a little bit later on. Speaking of which, and just how people, I say that you can find David's work in the Daily Racing Form. Just remind us, because you're pretty regularly putting up some videos there, and I saw a Breeders' Cup preview, based on the pre-entries up as well. So talk about when and where people can find the Daily Racing Form time form videos.
Yeah, you can go over to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. As Seth was saying, I just did a pretty long live stream this week with my DRF colleague Marcus Hirsch, where we went through just our preliminary reactions to all 14 Breeders' Cup races, looking at some different angles, possible contenders. So you can find that under the live streams on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. And there's also a lot of other information if you go to drf.com in the Breeders' Cup section. Articles, race recaps. I'll be doing some betting strategies with Marcus for the big 2 days on Friday and Saturday that you can find there as well. So a lot of information over at DRF.
And the betting strategies that's kind of a regular video feature, right?
Yeah, that's also written. I do those with Mike Beer regularly for Saturdays at the Belmont at the Big A meet, and also during the summer at Saratoga. So you can also find more information about that on drf.com.
Very good. And you have selections also if people check out on the NYRA website as well. So we'll tout that also. But let's get some opinions on the stakes action today, and we'll kind of go through in chronological order. The Awad, $120,000 for the 2-year-olds, going 8.5 on the grass. And I pulled up a replay. It's a horse I like, and if people pull up the racing form, the comments on the PPs in this race are from you. And so looking at the comments, I'm thinking you also might have a little interest in Conman. And I pulled up the maiden special, Maiden Breaker, back on August 10th. Conman's going to be the number 4 horse here in our replay. And I kind of gave a little bit of a pass to the 2-turn try in the stake at Monmouth last time. Maybe got a little more experience out of that at the 2 turns. I'm going to look for a little bit of a rebound and maybe a step forward. I thought the 10-1 was intriguing. So I'm going to tilt towards Conman. And as I say from the comments, I'm thinking maybe you also have a little bit of interest there. But what are your thoughts on the Awad?
Yeah, I think I gave away some of my thoughts in that closer look. I agree with what you said. This horse showed a lot of speed when he broke his maiden going the 5.5 furlong distance at Saratoga, and I think given how forward he was that day, it was somewhat surprising to see him so much farther back in the early stages of that now, considering that he was going 2 turns for the first time. It just felt like the rider that day continually was losing position on him, didn't get the best trip. I know that he finished a few lengths behind Let's Go Big Blue, who's probably going to take more money after finishing third in that race, but I thought Conman ran just as well and showed he can handle the 2 turns, and I'd imagine they're going to try to show more speed from the inside post on this occasion. So I agree. I think he's very interesting, and I'm hoping something closer to that morning line holds up.
Yeah, that is attractive to me, certainly, and I'm not going to be surprised. Went up at 41-1 at Monmouth and wound up 6th that day, so I think we are going to get some value. Let's Go Big Blue, as you say, 3rd. Freedom Trail in that race, and so he's interesting. Freedom Trail off the Maiden Breaker I thought was interesting. And Sendero, I always like horses who kind of couple of sprints and then stretch out in the 3rd start, so I thought the Pletcher horse might be a little bit interesting as well in here.
Yeah, that horse just has to get a little bit faster. He was beating much weaker company at Colonial last time, even though that was a stakes race. When you look through that field and Formulator, just the runners behind him haven't accomplished that much yet. So he's going to be stepping way up in class, but as you said, he goes out for pretty dangerous connections.
Yeah, I looked at the next out from the next couple of finishers, and you're right. They left maybe a little bit to be desired there. But interesting race, and again, we'll see if Conman can make a little magic happen there. The Kelso race number 5 this afternoon, the 1-turn mile. I pulled up the October 7th win from Baby Yoda, and I kind of couldn't get by him. But, boy, you talk about a quirky career. And I'll ask you, this is a good question. I'm not sure if you know the answer, but we looked down Baby Yoda, and we were talking about it on the handicapping show this morning. That 114 just jumps off the page. And certainly Beyer does adjust figures, and we were wondering, boy, shouldn't that figure be adjusted? Because it just doesn't seem like he's a 114 horse. That was such a quirky. But what is the time form number for that Baby Yoda race as aberrational?
I don't have it in front of me off memory. I believe the time form US number was in the high 120s, so maybe like 15 points or 12 points higher than the Beyer, so maybe a little bit lower. But I mean, I agree, for Baby Yoda, it's a total outlier in his past performances. But the weird thing about the race is the number kind of makes sense for everybody else in the field.
Yeah.
I mean, Olympiad was 2nd, and he's come back to run those kinds of numbers. That very good Brad Cox horse, Ducale, who was 3rd, I mean, he came back to win and repeat the number. So it only doesn't make sense for Baby Yoda, and it's hard to downgrade the figure when it kind of falls in line for the rest of the field. He's kind of a weird horse, Baby Yoda, because he's run these gigantic speed figures, not quite up to the 114, but even last time, the 99 Beyer for that 10-length score, it's almost exclusively come in allowance races. When he steps up into these graded stakes, he's not quite as successful. Maybe that's because he's facing some tougher competition and there just isn't a rival like Jackie's Warrior or Cody's Wish in this race. But still, I don't totally trust Baby Yoda because all of those big figure wins were earned while he was running on Lasix. He has to come off Lasix to run in this graded stakes. I don't know if that's an issue for him. But at a very short price, I did kind of want to look elsewhere in here.
What is intriguing, I put Baby Yoda on top with trepidation, but I thought Shaq Queen King was interesting coming out of the series of races down at Delaware. What did you find intriguing?
Yeah, Shaq Queen King, I mean, he's definitely in great form right now. I was a little skeptical about whether he's just a Delaware specialist because he actually is 5 for 5 at that track. We'll see if he can transfer that form to Naira. I kind of went to the back class horse, Title Ready. I know that it seems like his form has tailed off a little bit, but I can easily make some excuses for his recent races. He was against a slow pace last time at Presque Isle, and he didn't have to like that synthetic horse anyway. Prior to that, he was actually in a pretty live race at Ellis. And before that, I mean, he faced Olympiad, American Revolution, Happy Saver. So he's actually getting some class relief based on going back to his races from over the summer. And he's handled 1-turn distances in the past. And it just feels like, given those last couple of performances, he's probably going to get somewhat overlooked here. I'm not sure about the trip or the pace, but just kind of a value play on Title Ready because it feels like Baby Yoda is going to be a very short price in here.
Yeah, it's an intriguing race. There's no question about it. It's intriguing also, they're bringing Emma Jane Wilson in for the ride on Title Ready, so we'll see how that one works out. All right, a little bit later on the card, the Pumpkin Pie. I like Boston Post Road. I like WW Fitzy, but I pulled up a replay here going back to October 3rd, the Roman Rachel down at Parks. Oksana is going to be the winner here on the front end. And I thought with the early speed, Oksana is intriguing. Paco Lopez is on board this day and going to be on board again this afternoon. So to me, Oksana is the intriguing horse at the 6-1 morning line price. Your thoughts in the pumpkin pie?
It's interesting you bring up that race from Parks because I was actually a little more interested in the runner-up in that race, Dr. B. Oksana did more of the hard work on the front end, but Dr. B got a little bit shuffled back in the early stages, and she was running on pretty gamely at the end of that race to get up for second, and she just feels like a horse that has really improved since the summertime. I thought she was really game when she finished second to Goodnight Olive, who, of course, came back to win that Grade 1 Ballerina at Saratoga, and she was a good second to her back in early August. And this trainer, Butch Reed, I mean, he has had some success when he ships horses to Naira in the past, so I thought Dr. B was pretty interesting in here. I also thought that the other interesting horse was the number 1 WW50, but I just saw that she's actually scratched from this race when the scratches came out, so that dampens my enthusiasm a little bit. But I did go to Dr. B as the alternative. Not that I'm against Boston Post Road, but she just feels like another one that's going to be a pretty short price for some dangerous connections.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to race number 9, the Bold Ruler, and I'm going to take a little flyer in here, and we're going to pull up a replay. The race from Laurel on October 1st, going to look at the number 1 Factor It In winning. So coming up from the Mid-Atlantic, I thought this horse off of this race, Factor It In, was intriguing in here. Jackson Traveler for friends at West Point, certainly a player. Eastern Bay, intriguing to me. What do you think of the Bold Ruler?
Yeah, this is a wide-open race. I think it's the most contentious of the 4 stakes races at Aqueduct. And I agree. This horse, Factor It In, he, I think, is a real interesting horse in here because he's got this improved form this year at Laurel and Colonial. It just seems like he's really taken a step forward since coming back off a layoff as a 6-year-old. And he arguably could be undefeated this year because he really got fouled 2 back in that race at Colonial, but Necker Island was justifiably disqualified after finishing first. And just seems like he's coming into this race in great form. There's supposed to be some pace in here because the number 1 horse, Maras, is really fast, and they've got to be thinking they're going to go to the front from his rail post position. So hoping that the pace comes back a little bit, and I agree, Factor It In. Don't know what kind of price he's going to be because this was a tough race to make a morning line, but I think he's a very interesting horse shipping in.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued in that race, and I agree. The price is going to be the question mark, but I think it is a fun kind of competitive field where there is the opportunity for some value. Speaking of value, as the morning line guy, I'm curious, and we'll talk a little Breeders' Cup here for a couple of minutes, but if you were making the morning line, we were talking on the handicapping show earlier, what would you do with Flightline?
Yeah, I think Flightline, from a fair value standpoint, is supposed to be somewhere in that 3 to 5 to 4 to 5 range, just because it's the Breeders' Cup Classic, and it's a really tough race to win. I wonder how low he's going to go. I guess I shouldn't be surprised when the public bets him down to that 1 to 5 to 2 to 5 territory, because favorites just generally seem to get overbet a little bit in this game, especially when they've got the kind of reputation that he does. But, I mean, any way you break it down, he is a justifiable odds-on favorite in that Classic.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I've been saying it for about the last year now, and it seems different now than when I first got into the game. But favorites are really favorites now. There are races where I look up, and what really knocks me out is when you're looking at another circuit, and it's a $5,000 N2L, and you look up and it's 1 to 5, and I think, boy, I think Secretariat, I think 1 to 5, and Secretariat isn't in this race. So it is going to be interesting to see what Flightline goes off at. As you mentioned, you did the video on the pre-entries and took a look at what we have so far, but any clever ideas at this point, a little bit early out, a week away?
I mean, there's obviously still a lot to sort out. You're interested to see the post-position draw, especially in some of those larger fields. I'll just name a couple of races that are interesting to me before I see the post-positions. I was very happy to see in the juvenile fillies turf that the selection committee allowed Kujera into the race. I think that she is a very interesting horse getting back on the turf. She ran fine in the Alcibiades last time, but I was really impressed with both of her turf performances against maidens over the summer at Saratoga. I thought those were some deceptively strong groups of maiden special weight fields. So she's one that I think, as long as she draws a fair post position, is interesting in that race. And then on Saturday, I'm looking to take a shot against Golden Pal in the turf sprint. I haven't quite settled on who I'm going to do it with because there are some really intriguing European runners in that race. And actually think Wesley Ward's other horse, Campanelli, the mare, she is also one that has the credentials to win a race like that. But I just have not been quite as impressed as some others with Golden Pal's recent races and think he could be vulnerable in a spot like that. And he seems like one of these horses with a reputation that's going to be favored. And if you have an opinion against a horse like that in the Breeders' Cup, you can certainly make a nice score.
Yeah, and I will note, I have a bankroll to play on behalf of some customers here, and I think I'm going to try some pick plays that maybe aren't using Flightline, because I think, a horse race is a horse race, and I think if you get by Flightline, those picks will balloon to the moon potentially. So I may play around a little bit in that fashion as well. I'm not saying I have a strong opinion against. I'm just saying it is horse racing, and you never know what could happen. That race becomes a little bit intriguing once you get past that horse, if you get past that horse.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken up so much of the oxygen in the discussion around the Classic. You almost forget that this is a really strong Classic field if you just draw a line through Flightline. I mean, Epicenter and Taiba are above average 3-year-olds coming into this race. A horse like Olympiad is probably going to be double digits in here, and he's won 5 stakes this year, has earned the kind of speed figures that might make him the Classic favorite in a different year, but just with Flightline and these top 3-year-olds, and Life is Good as well, I mean, he just gets relegated to long shot status in a race like this. So if you have an opinion on somebody else in that Classic, you're going to get paid.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting 2 days, no question about it. And again, we can catch your pre-entry conversation over on the DRF YouTube channel, your selections for Naira over on their website as well for this afternoon's card, and we appreciate the conversation there. Oh, and I'll ask you, because I'm pretty sure you were one of the tweeters over the past month or so who normally, like I, focus on thoroughbreds, but I'm pretty sure you made some comments on Bulldog Hanover over the past month or so. And I just had Ken Weingartner on from the USTA. We were talking about the Breeders' Crown tonight. You know, tune in to see Allywag Hanover versus Bulldog Hanover tonight.
You know, I usually don't follow harness racing that closely, but like a lot of people, it's hard not to get a little excited about just a horse with otherworldly talent, and it feels like this horse is pretty special. I've watched his last few races. I saw the defeat last time, so very interested to tune in tonight and see how that goes down. And
I was kind of laughing with Ken because he mentioned the 145 that Bulldog Hanover ran, and while he was doing that, I pulled up the charts yesterday from Aqueduct, and the first race at a mile yesterday at Aqueduct was 142. Who would have thought when I was a kid a 3-second difference between a pacer and a thoroughbred at a New York track? I did not see that coming when I was a kid.
No, it's kind of funny. And when you watch some of those world record performances by Bulldog Hanover, he's coming home his last quarter in something like 25 and change or some 26. And I mean, that's what thoroughbreds come home in at Aqueduct. So it's kind of funny to make that comparison.
It is crazy. David, appreciate the visit and the conversation as always. Good luck this afternoon. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Seth.
Appreciate it. David Aragona, again, you can find his work, obviously, in the Racing Forum for DRF Time Forum. But if you check over on the Naira website, he has picks there every day as well. And do check out the videos over on the DRF YouTube channel. Speaking of which, the YouTube channel, we will remind you, speaking of YouTube, next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 4 o'clock, Anthony Mormino and I will have the annual Capital OTB Breeders' Cup seminar. That'll be live on the Capital OTB YouTube channel and really all the social media channels, Facebook and Twitter as well. We will replay it Friday and Saturday mornings, so you can check it out then as well. But the Breeders' Cup seminar live on the YouTube channel, Capital OTB YouTube channel, 4 o'clock this coming Wednesday. Don't forget also, we have the 2 big bankrolls, couple $1,000 each. Mike Rene will have one online. I will have one live. The online bankroll, send in, you have until tomorrow, through tomorrow, to send in to marketingmail@capitalotb.com. An email with your name, account number, put BC Bankroll in the subject line. We will select 40 people to be on the online team. And again, $2,000 will be wagered for the Breeders' Cup amongst that team. I will have a live bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook. You can show up here at the Racebook anytime today or tomorrow and put your name in the bin to be on the bankroll team, to potentially be on the bankroll team. We will select from that 40 folks, and then I will be playing here live from the clubhouse, and it should be a lot of fun. 2 really big Breeders' Cup bankrolls coming up this next week, $2,000 each. So we will try to knock it out of the park. Don't forget, I talked to Mike Callahan from the clubhouse a couple days ago and said, are there seats left? He said, man, there's a few seats left. So you maybe have your shot to still reserve a seat. If you stop down and visit the race book or give us a call, reserve your seat for Breeders' Cup weekend. You get a commemorative glass if you do that as well. Regardless, we'd love to have you stop down here and join the fun on Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday. Should be a lot of fun as well with nice big crowd, enthusiastic crowd. It's always fun. You have a nice enthusiastic crowd and kind of rooting along. And you can come down and grab some lunch as well and just have a fun afternoon. We'd love to have you stop by. As always, stop by this weekend. No Breeders' Cup, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. And you can catch some lunch and have some fun. All right, I am going. Speaking of which, let me lean off camera in a bad television move. But I wanted to get the event calendar because I knew there was an event for today, and I wasn't sure what it was. But it's the Exacta board today here at the Clubhouse Racebook. So if you come on down, you can put your name on the Exacta board, maybe win a little free dough, a little free wagering money from Capital OTB. That's happening right here today at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And don't forget, Sundays throughout the meet, you can watch all the football action down here as well. We have the football package, and we play all the games down here, so you don't have to miss any of your favorite football action if you want to come down and play the horses here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, as usual, on a Saturday, I'm wrapping it up, but promising to come back in about an hour and a half or so. We'll kick things off for a Saturday afternoon. Take a look at the action at Belmont and at Keeneland. Keeneland's first post today is at 1 o'clock. Belmont is at the normal 12:35 time. So I'll come on at whatever, 12:20, 12:25 or so to kick things off. As I say, about an hour and a half to get things underway on a Saturday afternoon, OTB Live. So looking forward to coming back for that. But as far as racing across America, we'll wrap it up for Saturday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate our guest, David Aragona, looking at a really nice Belmont at the Big A Stakes card today. That should be fun. And don't forget tonight, again, appreciate the visit by Ken Weingartner from the USTA to talk on the harness side, the sulky side of things. Woodbine Mohawk tonight with the Breeders' Crown. Really, I mean, they're just loaded with superstars. We talked about a few of them, but the whole card is going to be just spectacular tonight. And that'll be right here on the network, of course. All right, going to wrap it up for Saturday morning racing across America. Seth Merrow, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in about an hour and a half or so for OTB Live.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.